Hello people of YouTube, it's Deepak here, and welcome to DCS World 2.9.21 and Eagle Dynamics MiG-29A Fulcrum module. But that's not why we're here today. This is the first in my series of tutorials all about the NS430 Navigator. And today we're using the MiG-29 as our airframe for this purpose. Now, before I start, I want to show off the fact that the NS430 is actually completely modelled in the external view, which is not what I was expecting. Just as I started filming, I noticed that is the case. Isn't that impressive? And what a big unit it is. I've seen these. It's obviously based on the GNS 430 by Garmin, and it never occurred to me that the unit is actually this deep. I've only ever seen it installed in a panel before. So there you go. Very, very nicely modelled here if you enable it in the options for the aircraft. So anyway, we're going to jump inside. Here it is as installed in the cockpit. I'm going to, for now, hide my pilot body with right shift and P, and I'm going to show you how to minimally power the aircraft on just in order to use the unit. We're not going to bother with an actual startup of the aircraft today. So we're going to want to turn on the battery ground supply switch, and at that point it will be possible to power the unit on. I think am I right in saying the backlighting came on when I did that? Let's just check. Let's turn the switch off. Yeah, you can see the unit's totally dead now. So yeah, battery switch needs to be on, and just so that we don't end up running down the battery, we're going to connect the ground power. And then we'll center down fully on the unit itself.
Ground power is now on.
Excellent. Okay, so first thing we'll do is we'll power the unit on. We do that by rotating the volume switch. Anything out of the cutoff detent is enough. You'll initially get this page that says loading. You can press enter to bypass that. You would then do the instrument panel self-test. Now, in a civilian aircraft, this would normally then deviate the pointer on your HSI. So it would do a series of tests, and you could confirm that your HSI is working correctly. We don't have that integration in a military aircraft like the MiG, so we can basically ignore this page and continue. It would also give you options to set your fuel and review checklists. Those are not functional, so we can just hit OK again. It will acquire GPS, and then the unit will be fully powered up. Note that at the bottom here we have flashing message. We can press the message push button, and it's simply confirming to us that the device is ready. If we press message again, that is then cleared. So this is the system basically at rest. First thing I'll do is I'll go through the controls that we have on the unit. The left-hand side of the panel is concerned with the comm radio and the navigational radio, which are built into this unit. In DCS, these are not simulated, so while we can interact with this, and I'll tell you how to interact with it just in case it's of interest, it doesn't do anything in the sim. So we've got a top window here for the comm. The top frequency is what the radio is currently tuned to, so our comm is tuned 136.975. Below that we have the standby, and the standby is controlled with this rotary here. So outer is for the megahertz, the main number, and the inner does the decimal. So we could tune the standby to 122.8, and then we have the flip-flop here. If I click that, we make 122.8 the active, click it again, we flop back. If I want to be able to control the navigational radio, which is labelled VLOC, I have to push in, and it jumps the cursor down to the bottom window for the nav radio, and then again I could tune whatever I want into standby and hit the V flip-flop to flip-flop that one, and then I push the knob to go back up to comm. And this is the navigational radio volume. Again, that's not implemented, so it's not going to do anything. In a real aircraft, this would be my comm volume, this would be my nav volume. Pushing this one would toggle squelch. Pushing this one would toggle audio reception and allow me to validate the Morse code ID. And that's all that the left-hand side here is doing. We've got buttons across the bottom. These have specific functions. CDI allows us to switch between GPS and radio navigation, but radio navigation is not implemented. OBS allows us to suspend automatic advancing of the waypoints as we fly through our flight plan. So normally we'd have a flight plan, and as we overflew each waypoint, it would flip to the next one. We can actually click OBS, and that would actually suspend that. I don't have a flight plan, so it's not doing anything right now. Message, we already covered. If there is a flashing message available, that will bring up the message window, and clicking it again will allow us to accept that. Flight plan will bring up the currently selected flight plan. Note that when you create waypoints in the mission editor or using the route planning functionality that you have in multiplayer, they will automatically populate this. I don't have a flight plan right now, so clicking flight plan again will take me out of that. And proc is for procedures, and this allows us to load approaches, arrivals, and departures. So the approaches are actually the approach procedures that you would use for a runway. So they're going to be things like non-precision VOR arrivals or ILS or things like that. The arrivals are STARS, standard arrivals. These are published procedures for arriving at a civilian airfield. And the departures are standard departures. These are also published procedures. You can select and activate these. I could hit procedure again and it'll take me back out. Now, down the right-hand side, we have the range rocker. Down reduces the range and up increases the range, and the current range is indicated at the bottom left of the window. This is the direct to symbol. We can click this at any time and immediately select some kind of map object to navigate to, and it will navigate us to that point from our current position. So rather than following the course between 2 points, we'll take our current point and go directly to another point. Menu has various functions depending on which page we have displayed at any given time. So this is the map menu. You can click it again to get rid of it. Clear is to clear, and if you click and hold clear for 2 seconds, it will always take you to the first page of nav. And then enter has various functions depending on what you're doing. The right rotary here has an inner and an outer knob and a push for cursor function, and this is the main way that you're going to interact with the unit. So the unit has master modes indicated here. We're currently in nav. The outer rotary will actually allow us to go through those main modes. So we have nav, we have waypoint, we have auxiliary, we have nearest, and then we can, that's the end of it. We can go back through them again. You'll note that each one of these has a series of pages indicated, and we can go through the pages of each master mode using the inner rotary. So this is nav on page 1, we can go to page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we could go all the way back to here. You can always quickly get to nav page 1 by clicking and holding clear again. That will always take us to nav page 1. And same here with waypoint. You can go through it like that. So, and then you've got push for cursor. So if we're on a page that takes cursor input, for example, if we're on the map page, we can click to enable the cursor. And that then gives us the outer rotary to move the cursor horizontally. And the inner rotary allows us to move it vertically, and we could then push cursor again to disable the cursor. Or in situations where you can do text input, so if we go to waypoint here and I push cursor, it now gives us a flashing text cursor, and when you're in text cursor mode, the outer rotary is actually changing which element you're editing, and the inner cursor is always going through options for the current one. So if you see here, we're currently at Kutaisi, which is Uniform Golf Kilo Oscar. I could roll this to uniform, and then I could rotate the outer rotary to go to the next field that I want to edit, or the next part of the field I want to edit. So I could move it to the last, the kind of last position in this identifier and rotate to get to whatever it is I want. And then I can push cursor again to disable the cursor. So that's the entire functionality there for the right-hand side. And again, long press of clear, that's always going to take me right back to the beginning. So those are the absolute basics of the interface on the unit. Okay, so now I'm going to go through the various pages that you have in all of the master modes. We're starting off in nav mode and we're on the first page, which is just called default. This page shows us a course deviation indicator here, and the scale on this, it's a flat scale, as you can see. It shows current heading and then course deviation in relation to that, and it has different scales depending upon what major mode you're in. The unit can be operating in approach mode, terminal mode, or en route mode, with en route mode being the most common one. It would normally be indicated in the bottom left here. It's not indicated just now because I don't have a flight plan loaded. You then have your from and your to. This symbol indicates direct to, so currently I'm navigating direct to Bravo Juliet. I did that by using the direct to button, by the way, because I don't currently have a flight plan. Normally it's actually going to be your current waypoint where you are positioned, or the one you've left, and then directing you to the next waypoint that you're actually navigating to. You then have a bunch of user-defined fields below. I've got distance, desired track, bearing, ground speed, track, and estimated time of arrival. However, I can click menu here and I have the option to change those fields. When I go into that mode, the outer rotary allows me to choose which field I want to change. And then if I press enter, if I roll the inner rotary, in fact, I can then change it to something else. So let's say we want MSA instead. Now I press enter, and I now have the MSA for the current area. If I push the cursor again, it disables the flashing cursor in this mode. If I roll the inner rotary and we go to page 2 is map. And this is probably the most common page that you're going to display. We can use the range to change kind of how zoomed in or out we are. We've got range indicated at the bottom left there. And I can go to menu and we have the option to set up the map. In this mode, we can change orientations and zoom levels and things like that. Alternatively, I can measure a distance. This allows me to use the map cursor to measure a distance between 2 points. I can turn on data fields with this option, and it will give me a data field block down the right-hand side. And when that's on, we have the option to change what fields are displayed in there, just like we can do in the default page. I'm going to go data fields off for now, and that takes that block back off again. Page 3 is terrain. This is basically the same, except it displays color-coded relative altitude information for the terrain around you. It's very, very handy. It has an option to inhibit in the menu. I don't know why you would do that. The default view is 360. I actually had it set to 120. If you're flying at low level, the 120 view is probably quite handy. But otherwise, it's the same information you get on the map page. Next, we have the communications page. This will normally show you a departure frequency information for your currently selected airfield. If I go into here and start... Okay, that's interesting. This is not populated right now. It might be because I don't have a flight plan, so that probably explains that one. Normally, however, you would have information about frequencies that you could tune. Next page is called position. This is basically just a compass with your current heading and then a bunch of fields with information. This is kind of handy if you have to call out your position for emergency reasons. You know, this is my current GPS position. And again, if I had an airport selected, it's going to give me information about the bearing and distance to that airport. So that's position page. Next, we have satellites. This is showing us information about the current satellites that we have. This is all simulated, of course, because we're in a flight simulator. This is not a very useful page in DCS. And in the very last page is the vertical profile. Vertical profile allows us to choose an altitude that we'd like to be at before the currently selected waypoint. You would usually use this for planning your descent to your arrival airfield. I can push in the cursor, and with this I can choose the altitude that I want. And if I go through these different fields, I can hit enter. It can be above the waypoint's elevation, so usually above the field elevation, or mean sea level. I'm going to leave it above waypoint. I can have the distance before, and you've got options for before or after, and then the actually selected position, and then what we want to set our vertical speed for. This is going to help us kind of calculate when to start our descent. So that's what all of that does. And that's the final page that you have in nav mode. Next master mode we have is Waypoint, and we can get to that by rotating the outer rotary, and it has a series of pages that allow you to look up information about various different kinds of map object. The very first page is Airport. So this allows us to look up an airport. I can push in cursor, and currently we're at Kutaisi, so let's rotate it to, yeah, we go, Uniform Golf Kilo Oscar. I can hit cursor again and it's now selected it. It's going to give us the name and the name of the nearest city, GPS position, field elevation, if they have fuel available, and then you can even look at types of approaches and things like that they have. So that's kind of handy. This you would often kind of set up and then just leave. Next page we have is runways. So because I've already selected that airport, it's brought it over into this page. Shows me a visual representation of the runway with north reference. It tells me I've got runways 2, 5, and 7. I've got a length of runway and its width and the surface. If I roll again, we're now actually going to get COM information. Let's actually, I don't know why it didn't choose the airfield automatically, but let's do it. There we go. If we choose the airfield, it's then going to tell me tower frequency. So that's kind of a handy reference there. Next page is for approaches. With this one, we can look at all the different approaches available at a particular airfield. And we even have the option of either inserting them into the flight plan or activating them as well. So here you see I've selected Kutaisi again, and actually if I was to roll down to the approaches here, and with the outer rotary, I can select what part of the screen I want to look at. Inner rotary then gives me the full list, and I could choose one of these procedures. So let's take the ILS for 08, let's hit enter, and then you can even choose the transition that you would like. I'm going to leave it on vectors, that's actually fine, and I'll disable the cursor. This is now ready to rumble, and I could actually even hit menu, and it has the option to either load it or load it and activate it. So it's really just a method of looking through what arrivals are available before you actually make use of them. Sorry, actually, no, that's approaches. I'm talking nonsense. Then you have arrivals, which is the stars, the standard arrivals. This one works in the same way. We then have the departures, and this is for standard departures. Again, works in the exact same way. Next, we have intersections. This allows us to look up the intersections on airways. This could be handy if you want to make use of intersections for the purposes of building a flight plan. After that one, we have NDBs. Again, works in the same way, even gives us a note of the frequency. VOR stations. And the very, very last one is for user waypoints. This allows us to browse through our user waypoints, but we can also create user waypoints using this. We'll cover that more in a future video. Okay, the next master mode we'll take a look at is auxiliary. This has a series of 4 pages, with the first one being flight planning. As usual, I can push in the cursor and then use the inner rotary to go through which one of these I want to activate. Pushing cursor again deactivates the select cursor. We'll go over all of these in a different video, but just be aware that they're here. So yeah, first page is flight planning. Second page is utility, and we have a bunch of different utilities available to us here. Third page is setup 1, and fourth page is setup 2. So that's the auxiliary master mode. And then lastly, we have nearest. Now this is kind of handy, especially in combination with Direct 2. It allows us to very quickly take a look and see things like the nearest airports, which is the very first page that comes up. That is, of course, the thing that you're most likely to want to actually make use of. A nice feature here actually is with the tower frequency selected, you can hit enter and it will immediately put that frequency into your standby window on your comm radio. So that's kind of cool. And if we push enter on a particular airport, it takes us straight to that particular page in the waypoint mode, which is also kind of handy. Anyway, let's go back to nearest. So first page is airports, second page is intersections, again, very useful for building a flight plan. Third is the nearest NDBs. Fourth is the nearest VORs. Fifth is the nearest user waypoints, if you've created any. Sixth is the nearest ARTCCs, so these are basically ATC units. FSS is actual, these are flight regions, basically, with their frequencies. These two pages are not really going to do anything in the sim. And then the last one is airspaces. Some of the maps, I think, do have airspaces defined, but again, this is really not a particularly useful page in the simulator. You're mostly going to want to use the VORs, NDBs, intersections, and airports in nearest mode. And those are all the main pages. Again, long press of clear is going to take you straight back to default navigation page. Additionally, as I said, we've got flight plans and procedures. We'll cover those in a different video. And the direct to is pretty simplistic. Okay, so that's everything that I have for this first introductory video. I hope you all enjoyed that. I'll be diving into more depth with some of the features this unit has in future videos. I hope you all enjoyed that. Fly safe, and I'll see you next time.